Everyone get out!
Hello tankers and tankettes, and Happy New Year! It's 2014, it's like a whole new year. Anyway, I thought I'd kick things off with something a little bit interesting, a little bit different. Excuse me, just filling with the map. This has been sent in by the Chainsplit, and it's the VK4, no, it's not a VK4 or anything, it's the VK72.01. It's the tier 10 German Clan Wars reward tank from the most recent campaign. The reward from the first campaign was the M60 medium, which was tier 10 on the American line, and this thing's tier 10 on the German. Now, these aren't premium tanks. They have some features of premium tanks in that you can put any German heavy crew in this thing, for instance, but you don't get premium profitability, and that's kind of a downside with this thing, because basically in terms of armament it is the E100. It's got the E100's gun, the 15cm, which means you need to be firing quite a lot of heat shells in order to damage a lot of stuff in a lot of circumstances, because the regular AP shells are what, 230 pen? It's pretty bad. Whereas the heat shells have, I think, 330 something pens. It's like 100 extra pens. So it's one of those situations where if you meet an E100 with this gun, you should pretty much expect them to be firing heat. If you meet one of these things with this gun, well, because it can't tote any other gun, you should also pretty much expect them to be toting quite a few heat shells around with them. And as you can see, that's what the Chainsplit is doing. The majority of his shells are actually heat shells. 16 heat, 5 AP, and 3 HE. So that's actually not that many shells either, so you have to be quite careful with your shots, because if you waste a lot of shells, it's going to be costly. So it's actually, and I've been looking at the numbers, it is actually very, very similar to the E100 in terms of its DPM, in terms of its reload speed. It's something like a 19-second reload, so that's another reason to be careful with your shells especially. So he's oh God, I keep doing this with tier 10s. I keep going, oh, it's top tier. Yeah, GG brain, GG. It's a pretty good matchup though. I mean, there's not that many tier 10s per side. It's mostly tier 9s. It's like a couple of tier 10s and then 3/4 tier 9s kind of thing. And there's no artillery, and there aren't masses of tank destroyers, which is, you know, that's a pretty nice lineup really. The armor on this thing, I've been looking at it in the Tank Inspector application, which you should totally go and check it out. I think Jingles did a little kind of a look at it in a recent video, and it is a very, very useful application. It's sort of features of the old the armor model viewer, which is no longer being developed. Plus, it's got a whole bunch of the actual stats as well. Whoa, bit of frame rate dirt there. So I've been looking at that, and it's a bit like the KV5 in that the lower front plate is the same armor thickness as the upper front plate, except that obviously the angling does matter a lot. So you still want stuff to be shooting at your upper front plate, and there are still guns that are going to go through both of them because it's only 200mm, even if it's got some decent sloping on the front. So it's kind of a combination of the VK4502B in terms of turret configuration, in terms of wanting to use your front armor, because the side armor's not especially amazing on this, and it's also a bit E100 as well in terms of the actual gun. Yeah, I don't know why the frame rate is derping so much. I'm not doing anything else especially. So he's being very cautious in terms of firing, and you'll see there he's got the green marker, but that's an angled D100 turret. Gives it a go anyway. I don't know if he was trying for the view range bar weak spot, but that bounced, unsurprisingly. He may have been, I mean, look at the bounce market, he may have been trying for that. It's not being inside Chainsplit's head at the time, it's hard to say exactly. This is all kind of guesswork on my part, but he's looking for a shot on that E100, and oh, lower front plate, there we go, boom. 1600 damage already. I mean, the reload on this is pretty bad. It's like 3 point something rounds a minute, but with the heat shells and the the more guaranteed, you know, not totally guaranteed penetration, but the much more guaranteed penetration than the regular AP. This thing does pack a punch, much like the E100, so looking for a shot. It's kind of guesswork here. I think I would have aimed a bit more carefully at the commander's hatch. That was a bit too low. That was probably all... Sorry. My throat went a bit weird there. That was almost certainly always going to bounce that one, given where he was aiming at it. So, 12 shells already. Down to 12 shells, or down to 12 heat shells, really. And... I don't know, maybe he's not... You know, it's not a super accurate gun, so that's maybe why he's not trying to get the commander's hatches on those things. Anyway, he just has to be a bit more aggressive at this point. They've pretty much won this corner. 7-5. I mean, it's not looking like a runaway victory, but, you know, it's looking fairly comfortable. Boom. I'm not quite sure why that went in, that it damaged his gun as well, but anyway, there we go. Low front plate. This thing has actually got... The gun depression is okay, it's not... I think the gun on the mouse is like -8, and the E100 and this thing are both -7, according to Tank Inspector, so I'm going to trust those numbers. So, you know, it's actually alright, gun depression, considering the way the tank is actually laid out. Now, there we go, there's an enemy VK, and there's a few of these things around. There's not that many, but... It's I should say Chainsplit in the Reddit clan, same as Fosh. So I've actually started hanging out on Reddit a little bit more, so I recognise some of the names more, and I try and say hello to Reddit people when I can. But hello, E75. That E75 isn't in Reddit. He's just, you know, planted a shot in. So Chainsplit's being, you know, he's planting himself a bit safely, and this is a kind of situation where the awkwardness of the tank configuration kind of... This would be awkward with the VKB as well, with the rear turret, and the gun, the maximum gun elevation isn't amazingly fantastic on this thing, so he's being kind of cautious. And even though he's the top tier, you know, and even though it's 9-7, he's not being totally gung-ho, because that's not really what you want to do in this tank, I don't think. Not with the amount of armor you've got, not with the way it's configured. Boom! 671 though, that's a really low roll, given that the average damage is 750. So Conqueror to the left there. He's got an IS-8 that's right with him, a couple of things further back. The E75, I'm not quite sure why he wasn't being... The VKB that's there, I can see why they weren't being mega aggressive, but the E75... Anyway, he's moving up a bit on this other VK. He's got quite a lot of his hit points left. You know, 2,500 in total is pretty decent at tier 10. That's the same as the IS-4. And it's not that far off the E100, which is 2,700. Now this guy is sort of side-scraping, backing up. He's doing the right thing. And Chainsplit is just looking for shots at this point. Not wanting to be too aggressive, clearly. I think he probably could have been a bit more aggressive, because it's him and an IS-8 versus, you know, it's 2 versus 1, but you're kind of relying on your teammates there. But I still think he could have done more here. Ouch. Okay, that was the ammo rack, and he's already used his repair kit. Oh dear. Okay, so that's got to be what, a 30-odd 40-second reload, something like that. That's quite painful. But it's still 2 versus 1, however. The VKB's finally moving up. The E75 and the Object 268, I don't know. They were just having a little picnic or admiring the view or something. Now, I don't know why he doesn't take the shot here. I really don't know. That was a really... He could have taken out that VK just then. And the VKB is low health. IS-8 is very low health. I don't know if Chainsplit was just not confident at just that second, or who knows. He may be able to take another hit. The IS-8 and the VKB obviously can't, but I think Chainsplit at the moment is just waiting for that guy to take a shot. And again, I don't know why he doesn't take the shot. He could have aimed at the lower front plate, he could have aimed at the side armour. I don't know if he just particularly wanted to keep a shell in to go after the the enemy VKB, but he could have had the enemy VK72 and didn't. Now it's going to go for the enemy VKB, and then, oops, this happens, and yeah, whoopsie, takes a shot in the armor, but that VKB's fired, and he's had it. So yeah, that rock is, yeah, I've done that before. You know, I'm not going to judge too much. But as Chainsplit said in his replay description, it started well and ended just like a fail Löwe should end the game. So yeah. So on the whole, though, that was a pretty decent game. Now, it was actually his second class mastery, which tells you that competition's obviously quite fierce at the moment. Everybody's playing these things. I think give it a week or two, it'll probably be a lot easier to get your mastery in this. But there's obviously at the moment people who were in clans, you know, rather good players, who got this as the reward tank, and are all kind of. It's not a good time to get your ace, basically, or rather, if you do get your ace, you've probably done particularly well in this tank. But it wasn't a bad game all round. Now, he didn't have the best score, but he was the third best, 5,700 damage. He didn't get any kills, but because he was shooting stuff and didn't get any kills, he shot enough stuff to get a Confederate badge, which is pretty nice in any tank. He took 2,700 potential damage, which was okay. He most of the damage was actually at the end there against the enemy VK, who was also probably shooting heat. So it's like it's one of these tanks where you got to know your opponents, you got to know what you're facing, you got to know what guns they've got to know how much to trust your own armor. And it's a lot of the cases where, you know, if you're not doing that, then you will be unpleasantly surprised because you'll come up against somebody who is either packing premium ammo or they've got more pen than you're expecting, or whatever. So you have to be careful with this sort of tank, and I found this with the VKB as well. Some opponents are more likely to be firing premium rounds than others, and knowing how to angle and when to angle and who to angle against, you know, it's all kind of knowledge that comes with experience, basically. And yeah, I think the only other thing to point out was that it was minus 34k credits. He's not running with a premium account. Even with a premium account, it would have been minus nearly 8k profit, but it's, you know, I don't think you play this tank to make money, especially. It's probably the same with the E100. It's not the, unless you have a really good game and you're running with premium account, you know, the number of heat shells you're going to have to be packing with the 15 centimeter. It's not a tank that you play for making lots of money. But I thought this was, you know, it was an interesting enough match, and it's not a common sight as of yet, because it's a reward tank. It's not one that many people are likely to ever play, so I thought this might be an interesting one for everyone to take a look at, basically. And I thought it might be an interesting start to the new year with the first replay of the new year. So yeah, hopefully you've enjoyed this. If you did, you can leave a comment below, you can hit the like button, you can subscribe to my channel, and of course, as always, stay tuned for more.